The rain pounded relentlessly on the cracked windshield as Harold Jenkins, an 88-year-old widower, clutched his worn leather wallet, fumbling for the exact fare. "Just a moment, son," he murmured, his voice barely audible over the storm's fury, but the driver, a young man named Mike Torres, slammed on the brakes with a curse, screeching to a halt on the desolate city street. In a flash of rage, Mike yanked open the door and shoved Harold out into the pouring rain, his frail body tumbling onto the slick pavement as the taxi sped away, leaving him soaked, bruised, and utterly alone. Harold lay there for what felt like an eternity, the cold water seeping through his thin coat, mingling with the tears he refused to let fall. At his age, every ache was a reminder of battles fought long ago: World War II foxholes, the factory floors where he'd toiled for decades, and the quiet hospital room where he'd said goodbye to his beloved wife, Eleanor, just 2 years prior. But this humiliation stung deeper than any physical pain, a stark betrayal in a world that seemed to have forgotten the value of patience and kindness. Slowly, he pushed himself up with his cane, the one carved from oak by his late son during better days. The street was empty, save for the flickering neon sign of a distant diner. Harold's mind raced back to his youth, when he'd hitchhiked across the country after the war, full of hope and vigor. Now, at 88, he was reduced to this discarded like yesterday's newspaper. He began to walk, each step a labored effort, his soaked shoes squelching against the concrete. The city lights blurred through the rain, mirroring the haze in his thoughts. Why had the driver been so cruel? Was it the traffic, the late hour, or something more insidious, like the impatience of youth toward the elderly? As he trudged on, Harold's thoughts turned to his granddaughter, Lily, the only family he had left. She was 25, vibrant and full of dreams, working as a nurse in the same hospital where Eleanor had passed. Lily had insisted he take a taxi home from his doctor's appointment that evening, worried about the storm. "Grandpa, promise me you'll be safe," she'd said over the phone, her voice laced with that familiar concern. Now, he dreaded telling her about this ordeal. He didn't want to burden her with his frailty. Finally, after what seemed like miles but was only a few blocks, Harold reached the diner. The bell jingled as he entered, drawing sympathetic glances from the few patrons inside. The waitress, a middle-aged woman named Clara with kind eyes, rushed over with a towel and a hot cup of coffee. "Oh, honey, what happened to you?" she asked, helping him to a booth. Harold recounted the story haltingly, his voice cracking as he described the shove that sent him sprawling. Clara listened intently, her face softening with empathy. "Some people just don't see the humanity in others anymore," she sighed, refilling his cup. In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of the diner, Harold felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps not everyone had lost their way. Meanwhile, across town, Mike Torres gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles white. The fare from Harold had been his last of the night, and now guilt gnawed at him like a persistent itch. Mike was 32, a single father struggling to make ends meet after his wife's sudden departure left him with their 6-year-old daughter, Sophia. Taxi driving was grueling: long hours, rude passengers, and the constant pressure from his boss at CityCab to hit quotas. Tonight, the storm had delayed every ride, and Harold's slow payment had been the breaking point. Old man should have had his money ready, Mike muttered to himself, but the words rang hollow even as he said them. Pulling into his cramped apartment building, Mike parked and headed upstairs, the rain still drumming against the windows. Sophia was asleep on the couch, her babysitter, his neighbor, Mrs. Ramirez, dozing nearby. "Rough night?" Mrs. Ramirez asked as she gathered her things. Mike nodded, paying her with the last of his cash. As he tucked Sophia into bed, her small hand clutching a stuffed bear, he couldn't shake the image of Harold falling. What if that had been his own grandfather? The thought twisted in his gut, a seed of regret taking root. The next morning, Harold woke in his modest home, a small bungalow filled with memories, faded photos of Eleanor, his son's high school diploma, and Lily's childhood drawings pinned to the fridge. His body ached from the fall, bruises blooming on his arms, but his spirit remained unbroken. He decided not to tell Lily right away. Instead, he busied himself with his daily routine, brewing coffee, reading the newspaper, and tending to his tiny garden out back. The roses Eleanor had planted years ago were in full bloom, their petals a vibrant red against the gray morning. Lily arrived unannounced that afternoon, her nurse's scrubs still on from her shift. "Grandpa, I wanted to check on you after last night," she said, hugging him gently. Harold forced a smile, but Lily's sharp eyes noticed the limp in his step. "What happened? You look hurt." Reluctantly, he told her everything, watching her face shift from concern to outrage. "That's unacceptable. We need to report this," she insisted, pulling out her phone to search for CityCab's contact. Harold placed a hand on hers. "Let it go, dear. Anger won't change anything." But Lily was determined. She filed a complaint online, detailing the incident with Harold's quiet dignity shining through her words. Back at CityCab's headquarters, Mike's boss, Mr. Harlan, a stern man in his 50s, summoned him to the office. "Torres, we've got a complaint. Elderly passenger says you assaulted him. Threw him out in the rain. Company's got zero tolerance for this." Mike's heart sank as he read the report, Harold's name, the exact time, and a plea for justice, not out of vengeance, but to prevent it from happening to others. "It was a mistake, sir. I lost my temper," Mike admitted, his voice trembling. Mr. Harlan shook his head. "You're suspended pending investigation. Hand over your keys." Mike left the office in a daze, the weight of his actions crashing down. How would he provide for Sophia now? The rent was due, groceries were low, and without this job, they might end up on the street. Desperation fueled his next move. He needed to find Harold and apologize, beg for forgiveness if necessary. But how? The complaint had an address, Harold's home. With nothing left to lose, Mike set out that evening, his mind racing with what-ifs. Harold was in his living room, flipping through an old photo album, when the doorbell rang. Peering through the peephole, he saw a young man shifting nervously on the porch. It was Mike. Heart pounding, Harold opened the door. "Can I help you?" he asked calmly. Mike's eyes widened in recognition. "Sir, I'm the driver from last night. I came to say I'm sorry. What I did was wrong." Harold studied him for a moment, seeing the remorse etched on his face. "Come in, son. Let's talk." As they sat at the kitchen table, Mike poured out his story, the struggles of single parenthood, the exhaustion, the fear of failing his daughter. Harold listened without judgment, nodding occasionally. "Life's hard for everyone," Harold said softly. "I fought in the war, lost my son to cancer, buried my wife. But kindness, that's what keeps us going." Mike's eyes filled with tears. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." Harold smiled faintly. "Forgiveness isn't about deserving. It's about healing." Their conversation stretched into the evening, bridging generations with shared vulnerabilities. Unbeknownst to them, Lily had returned home early and overheard from the hallway, her initial anger softening into understanding. This unexpected encounter was planting seeds of change, but greater twists awaited. The next day dawned brighter, the storm's remnants giving way to a crisp autumn sun. Harold felt a renewed sense of purpose after Mike's visit. The young man's apology had been genuine, raw with emotion, and Harold couldn't help but see echoes of his younger self in Mike's struggles. He decided to call CityCab and retract the complaint, but Lily stopped him. "Grandpa, he needs to learn there are consequences," she argued over breakfast. Harold shook his head. "Consequences without compassion breed bitterness, not growth." Reluctantly, Lily agreed to let him handle it his way. Mike, meanwhile, spent the morning job hunting, scouring online listings and pounding the pavement. Sophia tagged along, her innocent questions piercing his heart. "Daddy, why aren't you driving today?" He forced a smile. "Just a little break, sweetie." But inside, panic brewed. Bills loomed, and his savings were non-existent. By afternoon, he found himself at the local community center, where a job fair was underway. There, he bumped into an old friend, Jamal, who worked as a mechanic. "Heard you're in a bind," Jamal said. "We need a driver for deliveries. It's not much, but it's steady." Mike grasped at the opportunity, but his mind kept drifting back to Harold. Harold ventured out that afternoon, cane in hand, to the park where he and Eleanor used to stroll. The leaves crunched underfoot, a symphony of fall. Sitting on a bench, he reflected on the incident. It wasn't just about the taxi. It was a microcosm of society's disregard for the elderly, the rushed conversations, the overlooked wisdom. Harold had always believed in second chances. After all, he'd been given one after the war, when a kind stranger helped him rebuild his life. As he sat there, a young boy approached, no more than 10, with a soccer ball under his arm. "Mister, you look sad." "Want to kick the ball?" the boy asked. Harold chuckled. "At my age, I'd break a hip." But the boy's persistence won him over, and soon they were laughing as Harold gently tapped the ball from his seat. The boy's name was Theo, and he lived nearby with his grandmother. "She says old people have the best stories," Theo said. Harold shared a tale from his war days, the boy's eyes wide with wonder. This simple interaction reminded Harold of the joy in connecting across ages. Back home, Harold received a surprise call from Mr. Harlan at CityCab. "Mr. Jenkins, your granddaughter's complaint was detailed, but we're investigating. The driver claims it was a misunderstanding." Harold paused, then spoke firmly. "It was more than that, but I've spoken with him. He's a good man under pressure. Give him another chance." Mr. Harlan was taken aback. "That's generous of you, sir. We'll consider it." Mike's temporary relief from the delivery job was short-lived when Sophia fell ill that evening, a high fever that sent him rushing to the emergency room. The hospital was the same one where Lily worked. As Mike paced the waiting area, holding Sophia's hand, a nurse approached. It was Lily. Recognition dawned on her face as she checked Sophia's chart. "You're the taxi driver," she said quietly. Mike nodded, shame flooding him. "Please, help my daughter. I'll do anything." Lily's professional demeanor held, but inside, conflict raged. She treated Sophia efficiently, administering fluids and medication. As the girl's fever broke, Lily pulled Mike aside. "My grandfather is Harold Jenkins. What you did was cruel." Mike's face paled. "I know. I apologized to him last night. He's kinder than I deserve." Lily's eyes softened slightly. "Grandpa has a big heart, but actions have ripples." This twist discovering Mike through his daughter's illness shifted Lily's perspective. She saw not just the aggressor, but a desperate father. "Tell me about her," Lily said, gesturing to Sophia. Mike opened up about his ex-wife's abandonment, the sleepless nights, the fear of losing custody. Lily listened, her nurse's empathy kicking in. "Life's not black and white," she admitted. By the time they left the hospital, Lily had a newfound respect for Mike's resilience. The following days blurred into a whirlwind. Harold invited Mike and Sophia over for dinner, insisting on mending fences. The evening was awkward at first, but Sophia's giggles broke the ice as she played with Harold's old model trains. "You're like a grandpa," she said innocently. Harold's eyes misted. "I'd like that." Mike watched in awe as Harold shared stories, teaching Sophia about perseverance. Yet, an unexpected twist emerged when Jamal, Mike's friend, revealed during a casual chat that he knew Harold from the veterans group. "That old man's a hero saved lives in the war," Jamal said. Mike felt even smaller, but it fueled his determination to change. He volunteered at the community center, helping elderly folks with rides, turning his mistake into a mission. Lily, inspired by the unfolding events, started a hospital program pairing young volunteers with senior patients, emphasizing intergenerational bonds. Harold became the first participant, his stories captivating all. But as winter approached, Harold's health declined, a persistent cough that worried everyone. Mike, now back at CityCab on probation thanks to Harold's advocacy, made it his personal duty to drive Harold to appointments, free of charge. One snowy evening, as Mike helped Harold into the taxi, the old man paused. "Son, you've redeemed yourself. But remember, kindness isn't a debt, it's a gift." Mike nodded, tears freezing on his cheeks. Their bond deepened, a testament to forgiveness's power. Harold's cough worsened over the weeks, evolving into a rattle that echoed through his quiet home. Lily insisted on more tests, and the diagnosis came like a thunderclap: pneumonia, complicated by his age. Hospitalized, Harold lay in the sterile room, tubes snaking across his chest, but his spirit remained unyielding. "I've lived a full life," he told Lily, squeezing her hand. "Don't fret, dear." Mike visited daily, bringing Sophia, who drew pictures of sunny days to brighten the room. "Get better, Grandpa Harold," she said, her small voice full of hope. Mike shared updates from work, how he'd been promoted to trainer, teaching new drivers about patience with passengers. "It's because of you," he confessed. Harold waved it off. "Nonsense. You had it in you all along." In the midst of this, a surprising character entered the scene: Eleanor's long-lost sister, Aunt Beatrice, whom Harold hadn't seen in decades. Beatrice, now 85 and living in a nursing home across state lines, had heard about the taxi incident through a viral social media post Lily had shared anonymously. The post, meant to raise awareness about elder mistreatment, had garnered thousands of shares, painting Harold as a symbol of quiet endurance. Beatrice, moved to tears, contacted Lily and arrived by train, her frail frame supported by a walker. "Harold, my dear brother-in-law," Beatrice whispered, taking his hand. "I should have reached out sooner. Life got in the way, regrets pile up like snowdrifts." Harold's eyes lit up with recognition. After all these years. Their reunion was bittersweet, filled with reminiscences of Eleanor's laughter, family holidays, and the rift caused by a misunderstood argument long ago. Beatrice's presence added a layer of emotional depth, reminding everyone of lost time and the urgency of reconciliation. As Harold's condition stabilized with antibiotics, the group formed an unlikely family. Mike helped Beatrice settle into a guest room at Harold's house, while Sophia bonded with her over cookie baking sessions. Lily, juggling shifts, found solace in Beatrice's wisdom. "Your grandmother would be proud," Beatrice told her. "She always said forgiveness mends the soul." But tension arose when Mr. Harlan called Mike with an ultimatum. A corporate overhaul meant cuts, and Mike's probation made him vulnerable. "One more complaint, and you're out," Harlan warned. Mike confided in Harold during a visit. "I can't lose this job now." Harold, ever the sage, advised, "Show them your worth through actions, not words." Inspired, Mike organized a company-wide sensitivity training, inviting Harold as a guest speaker. Frail but determined, Harold shared his story not with bitterness, but with humor and insight. "At 88, I've learned that a moment of impatience can scar, but a moment of kindness can heal." The drivers listened rapt, many sharing their own struggles. Harlan, present in the back, was visibly moved. The twist deepened when Beatrice revealed a secret. She had been a taxi driver in her youth, during the 1950s, facing discrimination as a woman in a man's world. "I threw out a passenger once out of fear," she admitted tearfully. "It haunted me." "Don't let it define you, Mike." This revelation shifted perspectives, humanizing mistakes across generations. Harold's recovery was slow, but steady. Discharged home, he hosted a Thanksgiving dinner, the table groaning with food prepared by all. Laughter filled the air as stories flowed, war tales, childhood mischief, dreams for the future. Sophia declared, "This is the best family ever." Mike raised a glass. To second chances. Yet, challenges persisted. Winter storms brought isolation, and Harold's loneliness resurfaced. Mike started a senior rides program at CityCab, offering discounted, patient service for the elderly. It became a hit, boosting the company's reputation and securing Mike's position. Lily, reflecting on the journey, wrote an article for a local paper, anonymizing details but highlighting themes of empathy and redemption. It went viral, drawing letters from strangers sharing similar experiences. One letter, from a retired veteran, praised Harold's resilience, unknowingly echoing his own past. As spring buds appeared, Harold sat in his garden, roses blooming anew. Beatrice decided to stay permanently, mending family ties. Mike and Sophia became regulars, their bond unbreakable. The incident that started with cruelty had blossomed into profound connections, proving that even in darkness, humanity's light can prevail. With spring's arrival, Harold's health rebounded fully, his pneumonia a fading memory. He took daily walks again, cane tapping rhythmically, greeting neighbors with a warm smile. The world seemed brighter, infused with the lessons from recent months. Mike's senior rides program flourished, earning him a commendation from the city mayor. "You've turned a personal failing into public good," the mayor said at a small ceremony. Mike, humbled, dedicated it to Harold. Beatrice integrated seamlessly into the household, her stories adding color to evenings. She and Harold reminisced about Eleanor, laughing over old letters and photos. "She'd love this chaos," Beatrice said. Lily, promoted at the hospital, expanded her intergenerational program, with Harold as its ambassador. Sophia, now calling him Grandpa, joined sessions, bridging gaps with her youthful energy. But a final twist emerged unexpectedly. During a routine checkup, Harold discovered an old war medal he'd thought lost, tucked in a forgotten drawer. It was the Purple Heart, awarded for wounds in battle. News spread, and a local reporter interviewed him, linking it to the taxi story. The article exploded, portraying Harold as a forgotten hero victimized by modern haste. Mike read it and felt a surge of protectiveness. When paparazzi-like attention swarmed Harold's home, Mike stepped in, using his cab to shuttle him away discreetly. "You've got my back now," Harold joked. This reversal Mike protecting Harold cemented their friendship. The climax came when Harlan, facing corporate pressure, threatened to axe the senior rides program. Mike rallied the drivers, organizing a petition signed by hundreds, including grateful seniors. Harold led a delegation to the office, his medal pinned proudly. "Gentlemen, progress isn't about speed, it's about heart," he declared. Harlan, cornered by public outcry, relented and expanded the program citywide. In a poignant moment, Mike drove Harold to Eleanor's grave, where they laid fresh roses. "She'd be proud of you, son," Harold said. Mike, voice thick, replied, "And of you, for teaching me mercy." The story culminated at a community picnic, where generations mingled. Theo, the boy from the park, kicked a ball with Sophia, while Beatrice shared recipes. Lily announced her engagement to a fellow nurse, crediting the family's support. As the sun set, Harold reflected. One act of cruelty had sparked a chain of kindness, rippling outward. Mike, once the antagonist, now begged not for his job but in the article's wake. He had tearfully asked Harold for advice on being a better man. "You've got it already," Harold assured. Their tale became legend, whispered in taxis and diners, a reminder that forgiveness redeems, empathy unites, and at any age, one can change the world.